Susan's Bay is a coastal settlement and a historic trading port located adjacent to the central business district of Freetown. The economic activities centered around two wharfs and a market area attract many newcomers, and since 1960, the population has grown rapidly. This has increased the density of housing and forced the expansion of the settlement out to sea via banking. Despite its importance as an economic hub, services have not grown to meet the increasing population and activity, contributing to the proliferation of a number of risks, including fires and flooding. The topography and location of Susan's Bay have implications for the manifestation of risks in the settlement. Multiple sets of steps link Susan's Bay from the thriving market to the residential areas below. Its location downstream results in the arrival of waste from other parts of the city, mainly through Nichols Creek, increasing the likelihood of flooding during the rainy season. Moreover, operating large-scale services such as waste collection and emergency response are difficult as there is no road access into the settlement. Susan's Bay has strong community structures in place, but they do not operate equally in all areas of the settlement. This has created barriers to cooperation and has led to unequal access to resources, which could result in some residents being excluded from the development process. Plans to upgrade have the potential to impact residents differently depending on the location, socio-economic position, and tenancy status. Currently, there are a number of plans underway for the development of Susan's Bay. For example, national and city authorities have discussed the idea of a new access road leading into the settlement. In addition, following several major fires over the past 2 years, new building regulations aiming to prevent the spread of fires are changing the way homes are being built. These new bylaws come at the same time that other communities in Freetown have adopted a Memorandum of Understanding, prohibiting the reclamation of land through banking. Local leadership has indicated that this memorandum might soon be adopted in Susan's Bay. Finally, the Mayor's plans for Transform Freetown have the potential to accelerate major upgrading efforts in Susan's Bay. This momentum for upgrading comes with great opportunities for community mobilization and participation. With this in mind, the strategy presented in this video aims to harness this pivotal moment of change. During 2 weeks of fieldwork, we conducted 2 transect walks, 85 surveys, 12 interviews, and 4 focus groups. Co-developed with the residents of Susan's Bay, the strategy builds on last year's research profiling the dynamics of risk accumulation in the settlement. The proposed strategy builds on 3 key pillars: cooperative disaster risk reduction, community-led upgrading, and resource mobilization. Altogether, it aims to strengthen existing networks within the community while forging new connections between actors. In so doing, it offers principles of cooperative and democratic participation that empower the community to work towards a strategic vision for the future of Susan's Bay.
Cooperative disaster risk reduction involves strengthening the capacity of Susan's Bay's residents to deal with risk by building out alternative practices that all households can follow. Through cooperative strategies, households can act collectively to address the drivers of risk. Currently, most households are aware of the bylaws to mitigate risk, largely because they are widely enforced. However, the ability to comply with bylaws and implement safety measures is dependent on socio-economic position, tenancy security, and location within the settlement. In a settlement-wide survey, 84% of respondents said that they are aware of the current bylaws, such as the ban on dumping waste in creeks, or the newly introduced 2-storey building ban to improve fire safety. This is thanks to the work of both the CBOs and the FCC, who have implemented awareness-raising and sensitisation initiatives to mitigate risk. The socio-economic position of tenants can either increase or decrease capacity to implement measures at the household level to prevent future disasters. For example, one household interview showed a tenant and a landlord had pooled their resources to upgrade their house against coastal flooding. However, most tenants do not have ready available capital to invest in household upgrading, and therefore are unable to afford preventative measures, leaving them more vulnerable to risk. Residents' location within the settlement can also affect household level risk reduction. While numerous community-based organisations play a key role in sensitisation, as well as emergency relief, many of these CBOs are not equally active in all parts of the settlement. For instance, the CDMC primarily operates in Paloco Wharf, which means that residents living elsewhere receive less support from this organisation in responding to risk.
This place here, this was your home so. Then the big one then I will stand for them, go they work out with them. So they all them place them born, you know why we won't safe, they make them place them. Because then get big one, they all then go carry them problems so. But we now over to people here now, no they're not big one there. Pass to fight for we safe.
A cooperative DRR strategy offers alternatives at the household level, shifting efforts away from enforcement and towards collective solutions. Alternative solutions that are sensitive to the vulnerabilities of tenants can work towards addressing the root causes of risk in Susan's Bay. Instituting alternative waste management projects is an example of collective disaster risk reduction. The foundation for this type of collective action clearly exists in Susan's Bay. Many residents express interest in collaborating to develop new waste management solutions for Nichols Creek. Trial projects could involve the instalment of various communal waste disposal points and the employment of youth groups to regularly collect the waste from these points. Residents stated they would be happy to pay a fee to youth groups to do this work. The creation of such projects is vital in this current moment, given the recent efforts by the FCC to enforce a ban on banking and a ban on dumping waste in Nichols Creek. Pillar 1 will allow residents to build collective resilience against disasters and strengthen networks of actions that can engage with broader visions for development, not only for Susan's Bay, but for the whole of Freetown. Collective waste management, for example, is highly relevant to the Mayor's vision of Transform Freetown. These initiatives have an immediate impact in reducing the environmental burdens of waste buildup, such as pollution and flooding. The actions taken in Susan's Bay can therefore contribute to the implementation of Transform Freetown, environmental conservation, and wider plans for development.
A model of community-led upgrading could play a key role in ensuring widespread access to service provision for residents of Susan's Bay. In this proposed model, residents would take a lead in planning, developing, and managing new key services. This bottom-up process of developing new infrastructure for communal services can lead to a better understanding of environmental concerns, such as water conservation and pollution. In this way, community-led upgrading could be an entry point for environmental improvement. Some efforts to build out alternative models already exist in Susan's Bay and could be replicated or scaled in other parts of the settlement. In Colby Wharf, for example, residents have installed and managed a free community toilet. Potential for alternative models of service provision clearly exists, and discussions with residents confirmed a commitment to principles of democratic planning and inclusivity in exploring these options. Prioritizing these principles will help address 3 issues of service provision: access and location, affordability, and management. Currently, service provision is carried out by a number of community groups who have installed essential services such as toilets, water points, and showers. However, these are established in limited areas of the settlement. Our research showed that women face a particular set of location-based challenges, including traveling long distances for water and feeling physically unsafe at service sites. In a community-led model, residents, including women, would have a greater say in determining where new service points are developed. Focus group discussions around service provision revealed that payment was one of the biggest barriers to access for many tenants with limited financial resources. For example, toilets in the Paloco Wharf area cost 1,000 leones per use. Our household interviews showed that some tenants were paying weekly or monthly subscriptions for community toilets in order to receive a discount. However, some tenants preferred a pay-per-use system due to irregular income and were less likely than landlords to be able to gather lump sums for payment. More flexible payment options would greatly improve the affordability of services and could match the needs of different tenants. In conjunction with issues of access and affordability, numerous residents expressed concerns around the lack of accountability in the management of service points. This has contributed to feelings of distrust towards the organizations that manage them. A co-managed model for new service points would include a transparent process determining how profits from the services are used. Residents, normally excluded from decision-making and governance, particularly women, would be able to participate in determining how surplus funds are managed and reinvested in additional development initiatives. Embedding principles of democratic and inclusive planning into community-led upgrading efforts will help meet the diverse needs of residents in Susan's Bay. Moreover, if residents can provide an early foundation for community upgrading, organizations such as the FCC and external NGOs may be better positioned to help support and scale these efforts.
The third pillar seeks to maximise the potential of social and financial capital within and beyond Susan's Bay through effective resource mobilisation. FedUp has an active presence in Susan's Bay, and many residents are members of smaller Susu savings groups. This demonstrates a clear capacity and willingness to save. Although most of the existing schemes are for individual savings, evidence of long-term membership and regular contributions point to the potential for residents to engage in more complex financial activities, such as taking out and repaying loans. Currently, the reach and effectiveness of savings groups is fragmented. Surveys revealed that awareness and membership of FedUp is concentrated in certain areas of the settlement. Although SUSUs exist throughout the settlement, the management of funds and collection methods vary, resulting in different levels of effectiveness and trust in the schemes. Linking and consolidating these groups to build up awareness and membership more evenly across the settlement will address the issues of unequal access to the social and financial benefits of savings groups. A stronger network of these groups will allow them to mobilise in order to secure more ambitious funding and support for community projects to reduce risk. This would also take advantage of the FCC and external NGOs' willingness to engage with the community in the development of Susan's Bay. The social capital that lies in the highly engaged population could be mobilised in new ways by looking to successful precedents from other cities. For example, principles for co-management and democratic funding developed by the community in focus groups could be taken further by looking to the objectives of the Community-Led Infrastructure Financing Facility Model, or CLIF. CLIF aims to bridge the funding gap for settlements and allow the community to drive and scale their own development projects. The CLIF board in Mumbai, formed of Homeless International and an alliance of Indian urban poor groups, dispense loans to settlements wishing to implement housing and infrastructure upgrading initiatives. Mobilising to create a similar revolving fund in Susan's Bay could allow more complex and creative projects to be trialled. In addition, new principles for delivering and accessing finance could be an opportunity to address the unequal access to resources within the community. For example, after the March 2019 fire in Paloco Wharf, many landlords were able to rebuild their assets using the materials provided by the Catholic Relief Services. However, there was little room for tenants to share the benefits of this build-back, and many had to be forced to relocate or were homeless. Strengthening the democratic and inclusive principles of resource mobilisation will allow the community to disrupt the patterns of usual winners and losers. In the long term, these principles could even be used to leverage the resources and opportunities that come from Susan's Bay's strategic location as a hub for national and international trade flows. Finally, these practices provide an opportunity for collectors in Susan's Bay to become active participants in the narrative for the development of Freetown as a whole. For example, the community could access funding by engaging with emergent city-level schemes such as FedUp's Forde Bambai Trust Fund. Forde Bambai is a funding basket for development projects from monthly contribution of FedUp's members across Freetown. Susan's Bay's involvement in the Forde Bambai Trust Fund will also contribute to the fund's own growth and support development projects across the city. In the long term, this will help to strengthen networks for community-driven development at a city level. An effective citywide structure would also help to strengthen trust in funding schemes at the local level, creating a positive feedback loop for partnerships at multiple scales.
Through our research and close collaboration with the community, it has become clear that Susan's Bay is a diverse settlement with great potential for transformative change to disrupt the roots of risk. These three pillars aim to capitalize on existing social capital in order to offer alternative practices for disaster risk reduction, build out community-led efforts in upgrading, and strengthen community networks for mobilizing resources. Each of these separate goals intersect, enhance, and support each other. These three pillars were co-developed at a pivotal moment for Susan's Bay. With new bylaws, renewed attention from the FCC and other external organizations, and key development plans all set in motion for the settlement, instituting principles for collective action and democratic participation will be crucial. Moreover, while the strategy was developed in the context of Susan's Bay, many of its proposals come with clear connections to the rest of the city. The potential for resource mobilization through new funds and loan schemes could be replicated throughout the city, linking Susan's Bay and its economic potential with other communities. Even further, while the strategy does offer specific ideas for action, it was the guiding principles for development that proved the most important to residents. The strategy hopes to provide a pathway for putting these into practice, both in the short term and over time as Susan's Bay evolves. These principles of democratic participation and inclusion may be valuable to other informal settlements, charting their own path for development.